on depending on the degree they have, and then you can leave.
Yeah. Well, he's got his BS. Oh. You might have masters.
This is always this.
Oh, no, sorry, Red.
Lucky casters on this.
Sorry, I guess we're not locked down. I guess we're not, yeah.
Hey, I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, July 18th Planning Commission meeting. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, I should have said minutes, excuse me. So can we amend that to motion to first and second for the consent agenda, which includes the minutes?
So moved.
Seconded,
Okay,
still.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? Okay, move on to public comment.
Hey, Ryan. Sorry, we have the motion and the second repeated, so we can document these.
So it was Eddie that moved and Daphne that second.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Public comments, we ready for that?
Yep,
We don't have anybody in the room, other than staff and planning commission, so don't see anybody in the attendees list on the Zoom, but just in case, if there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the planning commission, this is the time to do that. You can raise your hand. See Grant raising his hand. Feel free to say what you'd like to the planning commission, Grant.
I'll wait till Mara report out.
Seeing none, I don't think we have any public comment.
okay, commission member reports, Judith.
No report tonight.
Daphne.
So I brought my homework, but no, I found this really cool article in Time Magazine, one of the most recent ones. Yes, I still get some magazines at home, also read them online, but it's about homelessness and the study they did in California, University of California, San Francisco. And I thought there were some kind of interesting things in it, and it made me rethink, how do you consider solutions for homelessness? And so some of the things that they talked about, they did validate that, most of their homeless population are truly Californians and such. There's, the common philosophy that people move to California, homeless move to California because of the weather and the services, and that's not proving to be the case. But there were some neat sound bites in it, like when they have a nice little visuals for me and stuff. Californians, did they seek help before being evicted or becoming homeless? 64% said they didn't even seek help, which I thought was interesting.
We did not.
They did not seek help. There was some information they talked about that most of the participants in the study indicated that less than $500 a month, or maybe a lifetime payment of $10,000 would have prevented them from being homeless. And so the perspective really that I took from this is the time to help homeless is before they become homeless. And so it's just far more expensive. And so this is no big epiphany. People have known this, but I thought the study really illustrated it really well and with simplicity in the way the article was written, in that what do we do? So, what does Lacey do? We do it before it happens, because, putting them in other alternate housing, policing the situations, all of those other things are so much more expensive than maybe $500 a month just to keep them in the apartment they're in or whatever kind of housing they're in. And so I just thought it was some really good sound bites. One of the other things that I thought was interesting is they talk about like mental illness a lot with the homeless, but most of the mental illness they talked about was just anxiety and depression. And we know those are really easily treatable, but if you're not being treated for them, then they can become something far more significant in their ability to work. But so many of those can be cleared with just medications or other simple kinds of things that can touch. So I just thought it was a really good article, and I liked the epiphany that I got out of it. It's just like, we need to shift the help to before they get there, and it's going to be far more effective, far less expensive, and doesn't come with all of the other issues. So I don't know, I just thought it was a neat article. So
Preventive medicine.
Yes.
Let's go back to Kathy, who I can barely see too far.
Too far, we need new glasses.
Yeah, I do.
I participated in June's Transit Month with transit agencies from across the state. And I'm just very disappointed in intercity transit's routes, the availability of busing, and their outreach in terms of Transit Month. And I don't know who needs to hear that, probably someone at Intercity Transit, but it was very eye-opening, and there's walkability scores. There's so many things that other agencies did to promote alternative modes of transportation. And it just felt really disappointing that Intercity Transit just did not participate.
Thank you. Mark?
A report.
I no report.
All right.
Sorry to think about that one for a second.
No worry, your booth, that's good. Eddie?
No reports.
Yeah, nothing, and nothing from me. So now we will move on to department report, right?
Yep, so Grant has a little bit of update on the right of way stuff. Before that, I will just have a couple quick things. We just already talked about the civic clerk thing, so bear with us tonight as we're doing a new platform with our kind of agenda management system. And as I mentioned, we'll after the meeting tonight, stay and get everybody signed into the portal and make sure you can access that for the future. So we've got that happening tonight. I also I think everybody's aware, but I just wanted to mention it that on the 4th of July, the lodge at Gwenwood caught fire, and it was essentially I spoke to our fire inspector today and basically said it was a total loss. So I've been in contact with Kate, the executive director, who you all met, and they are planning to rebuild. Good news, I guess, if there's good news that comes out of this, is that going through the rezone will actually help them, because that property currently is a non-conforming use in that high density zone. Going to the new open space institutional zone will take them out of that non-conformity. They still will have to conform to certain regulations, no doubt, but it makes it at least one less barrier to rebuilding. And so we're set to take the annual comp plan amendments that's a part of to council the second meeting in August. So that's when the zoning will formally change for them. No idea at this point exactly how the fire started. So no information to share there, but our inspectors got in and said, yeah, there's just not enough to the building left to be able to retain it. So it looks like at this point it will be demolished and rebuilt, most likely where it's at. So
They appropriately insured that it will be covered for them, and so.
I would hope so. I don't know the answer to that question. I didn't ask, but I would assume that, since they've had, they've used that for a rental facility and that kind of stuff to the general public, that they would have to have some kind of insurance. So, I'm sure they're, they'll
So sad. Yeah.
follow those avenues. Grant?
To build on the commission report outs, Ryan, do you want to talk about Jennifer's work with the Dispute Resolution Center?
Sure, yeah, previous legislative session, there was a pilot program related to some work that the Dispute Resolution Center does for landlord-tenant issues. That was funded all the way through June 30th of this year. That money has since elapsed, and so that program did was it essentially kept people out of court related to landlord-tenant disputes, and the Dispute Resolution Center is kind of this. For lack of a better term, a body that can, or a group that can help both the landlord and the tenant when it comes to those kinds of issues. That seed money that was provided by the legislature a couple of years ago went away, and so we're actually looking at extending service contract with the Dispute Resolution Center of Thurston County to continue that work. That's going to be in front of the council at a upcoming work session, I believe, next week, to look at potentially providing an additional $50,000, which would fund the Dispute Resolution Center at least through the end of this year, and then look at potentially rolling that into a future contract where we would continue to pay them for those services. This is something that Tumwater, I'm not sure if Olympia has, but Tumwater has continued the contract with Dispute Resolution Center and has found it to be an effective tool. I don't have the numbers in front of me, unfortunately, but I do know that a high proportion of tenants that use those services were actually in Lacey. So, it seemed like it was a very effective program, and hopefully we can get that contract extended, which will provide that vital service.
Yep. So, good point, to try to keep people from entering homelessness, and good work on the part of Ryan and Jennifer to put a program together that hopefully will help with that. So, on the other homeless issue, Maple Court held their grand opening on ribbon cutting on July 5th. It was a fantastic event. They've got 31 people placed in the former hotel as of this morning, and OLIMAP and the City of Olympia are ramping up the efforts, and they're going to try to get 15 people a week moved from the Slater-Kinney encampment into the former hotel. So that hopefully will speed up the process a little bit. WashDOT and their contractors have been out. You've probably noticed some limbing of vegetation on the property, and trying to harden it a little bit to keep reoccupation from happening. There should be set to close the Cloverleaf portion of the camp next week if they can continue with this placement rate, and then they'll move across Slater-Kinney into the Hobby Lobby side of the encampment. So it's going very well. They're starting to, the OLIMAP and the City of Olympia are starting to get their feet under them on the placement process. And Franz Anderson should be open to Tiny Shelter Village, should be opened by August 21st is the target. So that will provide yet another place for homeless campers to go to. And I'm just have to say this over and over again because it's my nature, but it feels good. I think it's a celebration that we were able to take the right-of-way money that the state offered and start building infrastructure to provide that, hopefully a conveyor belt to move people up and out of homelessness into wherever they can manage the highest level, hopefully market rate housing. And that infrastructure that we were able to acquire and continue to acquire with the right-of-way money will be in Thurston County forever and be available, long term. So the really regionally successful project. So that is my update.
I have one question. Remind us, if they refuse the shelter,
Mhm.
what is the process that happens next? I don't recall.
Well, with the offer of housing has to be made. If they refuse, they have to get out of the camp. And OLIMAP and all the service providers do everything they can to find appropriate, whatever is acceptable to them. In fact, there's some cases out there of some mental health issues that they know are going to not be able to succeed in the enhanced shelters, that the team is working very hard to find alternative housing. So they do everything they can to find an appropriate place. But at the end of the day, they have to leave the camp.
Thank you. And they're still allowing them to bring their pets for the
Yes.
stay with
Yep.
them for stress and all that. That's great.
Yep. They can't acquire pets, once they're there, but if they have them now, they can bring them to the shelter and keep them.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep.
And what is the capacity of the hotel and the tiny village?
The tiny village is 50 shelters, and the hotel at the first build out will be about 118 units. And they've got some other units that are occupied by staff and that kind of thing.
Thanks.
We'll move on to new business. The LPCR comprehensive plan staff report. We start with the Parks, Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. Jen?
Thank you.
So this is actually a public hearing. So you probably want to open the public hearing, Dave, and we don't have anybody here in the building, but formally need to open the public hearing. And then just want to make mention before you do that we did not receive any written public comment prior to the meeting, or we would have shared that with you. So at this point, we haven't gotten any comments.
Okay, so I wasn't aware of that, so we will close our regular meeting and open the public hearing on the LPCR Comprehensive Plan Staff Report. First part, Park, Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan, Jen Burbidge from Park, Culture and Recreation Director.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be back before you tonight for this update. And but before I do, I want to just take a quick opportunity to introduce one of our staff in our department who's in a new role. So this is Jenny Wilson. She's our new senior parks planner. It's a new position with our department. I'm super excited to have her in this position. Jenny is most recently our aquatics and volunteer program supervisor in our department. She's been with the city in our department for 21 years. And so she has done, she's worn a lot of different hats, but she has been able to help with some park projects over the years and in the recent past, and also in particular with community outreach. Just does a fantastic job with that. So super excited to have her transitioning over to that position. She is actually going to lead the Parks Board. And we have a new Parks Enhancement Program and Policy that she'll be in charge of. And then interfacing also with community and economic development staff. And so, and then in the future, potentially in this role with the comprehensive plan. So it doesn't come up for another 6 years, but she definitely wanted to come tonight and just see what all the steps are. So thank you, Jenny, and excited to have her on board. All right. So tonight I'm going to give you a very high level overview. More details are of course located in your staff report. And I did go over a lot of those details at the June 20th meeting when I was here. But please, if you have questions, be sure to stop me, questions or comments. Happy to do that. So the Lacey Parks Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan update goes from 2023 to 2029. It is that 6-year update. And it's part of, obviously, you all know the city's overall comprehensive plan. This serves as a guiding document for our department and also for the Parks, Culture and Recreation Board. And then updating this plan does provide an opportunity to evaluate Lacey's park system, recreation facilities and services, assess demands and needs, set goals and policies, maintain eligibility for grant opportunities, and importantly, provide for public input to address needs. So in this plan, you will find the vision of our department, which is we create exceptional events, experiences, and environments that delight, educate, and inspire the human spirit, connecting people to each other and the past, and building strong, healthy community. And so you'll also find a pretty robust description of the benefits of Parks, Culture, and Recreation. You'll see some of those listed here on the left side of the screen. And last time I was here, I was preparing for July being Parks and Recreation Month. Well, now we're into July. And some of you were asking what the theme was for this year. Last year it was We Rise Up, and this year it is Where Community Grows. So I think this is very appropriate. So this is the National Recreation and Park Association Parks and Recreation Month, and we honor the programs and the staff who bring these programs out to the community. So in the plan, you will read that the challenges are keeping up with the tremendous amount of growth, continuing to move from an acquisition to development or parks improvement phase, and solidifying a future funding strategy. Just kind of go through the sections of the plan. The strategic goals are there. There are 5 of those, and these serve as the overall structure and framework for the plan. And a guide to identify policies, objectives, and the prioritized implementation actions. And super appreciate all of the different input that we received for these goals from staff, from the community, from the Parks Board, from the Historical Commission, from the Commission on Equity. And it's a lot of different, stakeholders that go into this. Oh, there it is. Of course, public involvement is a very important part of this process, and we did a robust public outreach, a couple of different specific park outreach and engagement efforts over the past 2 years. And then a third robust outreach I had mentioned last time, that Greg Cuyo Parks and Greenways, Greg Cuyo Park and Greenways master plan that took almost 1.5 years to complete during that same 2-year period. So just a lot of public outreach. And the top themes from that outreach is indoor pool, indoor recreation opportunities such as an indoor playground, trails and preservation of open space remains, one of the top priorities for people. Spray parks and year-round multi-purpose synthetic turf sports fields that can be used for longer periods of time. And then, of course, continuing affordable subsidized recreation opportunities through events and classes. In the plan, you'll see the policies and objectives section. And again, there's a whole lot of information in there. I highlighted the top, the things that were suggested to be updated in the staff report and went over those at the last meeting. There's a section called levels of service standards. And so in regards to this, what you'll read in there is that on a national level of service, and you look at the park acreage that Lacey has for the public and the population that it serves, it's very strong with 1,263 park acres serving 93,218 people. That's the city boundary and plus the UGA total. And then when we look at local levels of service, this plan identifies the same as the last plan, which is to have a neighborhood park or trail within a 1/2 mile travel of each resident, and having a community or regional park in each of the 10 planning areas. And there are some planning areas that goal is achieved, and there are some that are not. But what we point out, and so the different sections of the planning areas goes into, what percentage of residents are within that travel shed. Now, a key difference from the last plan to this one is the use of the travel shed versus just we used to say 1/2 mile or a 10-minute walk. We now call it a 1/2 mile travel shed or 10-minute travel, because not everybody walks, they travel. And we have maps of more realistic travel sheds now. And I think I mentioned this last time too, if there's, a body of water or a private property that, instead of just putting a bubble around the park, you can actually look at the true access and what that is. And then we also added a lot of information about recreation level of service and museum level of service, which was something that the last plan was missing. Really, there's no set level of service for a community when it comes to recreation and museum, but there are core values, and standards. So we did enter a lot of information into the plan about that. And we talk in this section a lot about partnerships. We really value the partnerships within the community to be able to bring more services. I'll give you a great example, senior services for South Sound. We allow them to use the senior center that City of Lacey owns, and that provides services that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. So just a lot of partnerships, North Thurston Public Schools, the local colleges. I could go on and on about partnerships, but I won't tonight. And then as I mentioned, the parks planning areas, there are 10 that are identified in the plan. And this is really the section where we go into, we describe the planning area, the parks planning area, and we talk about proximity to residents, and then we talk about needs, we talk about conditions, and really describe, what amenities are in each section. And then the implementation action section outlines near term and longer term. So the near term is the 6-year plan, and that's now in the form of a Parks Capital Improvement Program spreadsheet, which is in the plan itself. And this is a great format that can feed into the city's capital improvement plan and capital facility plan. So we're making efforts citywide to streamline that effort. And so the near term, like I said, is the next 6 years. And then you'll find in the plan for the longer term, there's another 12 years past that. And those are in more of a narrative format or list of some of the major needs that are going to be needed. And yeah, so we, like I said, really appreciate all the input we've gotten from staff and from the public. And that, if we look at our intended timeline, that was done by the end of May. And then we're, making our way through advisory boards now, obviously in July. And then per the Planning Commission's recommendation to move that forward to the City Council, it will just depend on your schedule for that. And so, yeah, I want to thank you for your time and see if there's any questions I can answer.
So this would be the time that we would open up to public comment unless there's any questions of the planning commission.
Questions?
So I don't see any but members of the public in the audience here at City Hall, see if there's any buddy in the attendees. There's an attendee. If you'd like to provide comment on the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan update, this is your opportunity to do that. You can use the raise hand function and we'll go ahead and bring you in. Going once, going twice. I think we all know Wayne, he's probably here for the next item, so.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody here, so at this point, I think it's probably safe to close the public hearing and then turn it back over to the Planning Commission. The staff's request tonight is to recommend approval of this to the City Council for adoption.
So I'd like to, so item B is not under the public hearing?
Correct, it's just an update, yeah.
Um,
So this is part of our new agenda. I think it's under the new business section versus being its own public hearing
Yeah.
section of the agenda.
So I'd like to close the public hearing and go back to the meeting. So I would entertain a motion to move this recommendation to the City Council.
So moved.
Second.
Hold on just a second. So you get that moved by Gail and seconded by Kathy. There we go.
She can be here every week. Every time we meet.
Yeah, she'll be here, but she won't necessarily be back there in the room.
Oh.
She'll be here
She'll be
with the
there.
Okay,
laptop.
so let's just make it a courtesy then.
Oh, to say who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will help.
Yeah. So next time she'll be here at the table, so we don't
Oh,
have to
okay.
flag her down like we did tonight.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, move on to council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
I like that vision statement. I like your vision statement.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we updated that.
Okay, so we're going to move on to item B, climate initiative updates.
Can I do a quick digression? So with the new format of the agenda, is there any way to make it clearer that like that would have been a public hearing? So if we're checking these out or just,
I know it was buried in the text.
yeah. And so,
I obviously
Yeah.
so I meant,
didn't notice it.
it's just like,
We'll make a note to come back to you with a recommendation on
Okay.
changing the text.
because I just think we just want to mentally
It
be
certainly
prepared.
caught me off guard.
Well, yeah, I did
And-
notice that, so.
Yeah, and I would have thought this next item was part of it also, but then I went forward and read it again, make sure that it wasn't a public. hearing.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I'll ask your name again,
Lindsay
Lindsay
Fields.
Fields.
Yes, Lindsay.
So open the floor to Lindsay Fields. And you are, you're the climate and sustainability coordinator.
Yes, that's me.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep, so thanks. Yep, I'll just do a quick introduction of Lindsay. So Lindsay is our climate sustainability coordinator. She was hired about 2 months ago.
Yeah, it seems a lot longer.
We were able to hire from our water resources section here with the city of Lacey. You've been here for 4
4 years, yeah.
years prior in water resources, doing different programs in water resources. So really fortunate to be able to get somebody with some good expertise and utilize that expertise
She
in this
worked
role.
with Mr. H2O.
She did. She worked with Doug. Yeah.
Yes, Doug is great. I did not know that was his nickname.
Only
so,
here.
Yeah,
Only
no,
here.
no
Mistake.
going tomorrow. Yeah, okay.
I remember one of your presentations to all of the HOA boards,
Oh,
when they
excellent.
invited all the community HOA
Yeah,
boards to
those
come
are
in.
always fun.
Yeah,
I love giving those. Yeah,
That's great.
On I think probably the watering schedule or.
it was
storm.
really
Yeah,
practical. You gave us
Excellent.
information we could take right back to our neighbors.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Hopefully this is similar.
Yeah, so this is a new position. So this is Lindsay's kind of introduction to the planning commission, and thought this would be a good time to kind of remind and the planning commission on some of the work that's been done. And then also, now that we do have a full-time person that's working for us, we also are able to start implementing some programs and initiatives related to climate and CO2 reduction. And so give some kind of at least some early thinking on what we're going to push forward here in the next little bit in terms of climate initiatives, some of the things that Lindsay's working on. So with that, turn it over to Lindsay. You can go ahead and give your presentation.
Thank you. Yep, it's a pleasure to be here and meet you all. Again, I'm Lindsay Fields, Climate and Sustainability Coordinator. So just really quickly, I'm gonna, oh, no, not gonna do that. What did I do? There we go. There we go. Okay, just really quick, I'd like to maybe take a step back and just remind everyone where we are with the climate emergency, climate change, global warming, whatever adjectives you like to use to describe the climate and the sustainability practices that we're currently in. So the 2022 climate report for Thurston County, which is a byproduct of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, which is put out every year, kind of gives us where we're at, how we're doing. Just a reminder, our reduction goals for the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan are to have reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030, but for that's 2015 levels. It's kind of confusing. So by 2030, we should have had made a reduction in 45% of the 2015 levels. And by 2050, 85% reduction of those 2015 levels. And that's just to do our part to keep the global temperatures from rising at 2 degrees Celsius. And so that's our target goals. That's our that's where we're trying to head with the plan. As of now, we're not on track, except in I think the vehicle miles traveled. We have made some reductions in our emissions, but just not quite enough to be on track. But also keep in mind, we were trying to get the plans adopted. And so this is really our first year that we've been doing implementation and getting programs off the ground. So we're a little bit behind, but we have big goals ahead of us and really excited to start doing some programming. And you can find this. So I think you all probably get this presentation at some point. So there's some links in here as well if you'd like to go back through and look at them. There's the dashboard for Thurston County. I'll go into it, but the dashboard will be moved eventually. But you can go see if we're on track, if we're not, and then you can look at that annual progress report as well. And then to take it even bigger globally, are we on track? No. So if any of you have read the IPCC report from this year, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, you may have noticed that this right here is probably the biggest takeaway. If we implement all the policies that we have going globally, it still wouldn't be a deep enough reduction to meet our targets by 2030. And so at this point, we're talking about deep and in most cases, immediate reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. So anything we can do to take those steps now and not delay them any longer will be really important. And then I just provided a link for the synthesis report to that. So it's usually that's the report that isn't like 1,500 pages long. It's just like 30, I think. And so you can it has some really good graphs in there for policymakers as well. And then, so a big update to the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan is that moving forward will be known as the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative. Thurston Regional Planning Council will not be a part of our new ILA. They've decided to take a step back and focus on some other projects. So the staff team, Olympia, Lacey, Thurston,
And Tumwater, we're working right now to get someone on board. We have a couple of options. Lacey actually will be handling that contract for a new administrator of our collaborative. And so, but we're hopeful, and our goal is to have a new entity in some capacity, probably a contractor in place by October, which when we'll start back up with a new ILA as well. And so,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Who stepped out? I didn't. I-
oh,
I was a little-
Thurston Regional Planning Council.
Okay.
So they've, up to this point, have been doing all of the administrative tasks and functions for the CAW and the EC and staff team. And I mean, they did all of the 2018-19 work. And so moving forward, it'll be a great opportunity for the jurisdictions to really take control of the plan and really have the biggest say in how we want to implement this and get it going. And so we're actually pretty excited about that. And so last year, I came on right at the end of this awesome reorg of the collaborative. And so moving forward, this is kind of how we're gonna organize our collaborative. So Regional Climate Action will be taking, the staff team will coordinate those efforts. For instance, we'll be bringing initiatives forward for the regional initiative every year. We're working together to do one thing a year. The CAW will provide perspective from the community. Up to 12 members, I believe, will be sitting on that advisory board or advisory work group. The executive committee will champion the ideas to their council, to the community, to get them on board with what we're doing. And then the jurisdictions will implement each of the things that we come up with. And so again, it just gives some more control back really to the staff team and the jurisdictions to really get this work going and not have to wait so much. We can really start doing a lot of the programs we'd like to do. And so that's how we're going to move forward with our climate collaborative. We're really excited about. And then I'm just going to jump right into some projects we have that meet the Thurston Climate Mitigation Program that'll be completed this year or next year. And so we are maybe now like 2 weeks out from our PSC matching rebate program launching. So that will be going to council on August 3rd for recommended that our new city manager signs that. The PSC matching rebate will be 100% match for Lacey residents seeking PSC rebates to do energy efficiency in their homes. And so they'll be getting, so if you reside in the city of Lacey and you're gonna go through PSC and get a matching or a rebate for energy efficiency, we're gonna match some of those programs 100%. And so we're really excited about that. It's something that council has pushed as like the #1 thing we'd like to do. But also our community members have given us that feedback that they want energy efficiency programs as a start. And so it also meets a lot of our goals because buildings and energy use is our highest greenhouse gas emission in the region. So it's really targeting a great, it's a good place for us to start our programming. SoulSmart, we are in the process of getting a SoulSmart designation, which is a designation that tells our community that it's, we put permitting, we already have a lot of permit requirements in place, but if we need to put any more in place to make putting solar on your home easier, it's a designation that they work with us, they give us this designation, and it just says, it's a really easy process, it's streamlined, and then, so it'll be something easy that we can do. Because we've already been doing it and then we just haven't had the time to go after the designation yet. And so, yeah, so we'll be doing that this year. That'll be done. We're adding 2 new pre-designed ADUs with like 5 different configurations for our pre-approvals, which will help folks lower the cost to put ADU on their property, which helps with housing affordability, and also just, you know, really making sure that we're meeting our targets for housing density as well and not continuing to spread out. So we're adding, I think, new neighborhood commercial district zoning based on community feedback, planning commission feedback. And so I think Hans is in the last stretch of that, which will help also with 20-minute neighborhoods, which is a goal of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, really making sure that we have the things we need close by and we don't have to drive a bunch of vehicle miles to get the things that we need in our communities. And then the LED streetlight program is actually around 64% finished. So every time a streetlight goes out, we replace it with a LED lighting. And it really reduces our energy uses for, it's one of the easiest things we can do actually to reduce energy use of the city. And so that program's been around for a while and we'll continue to replace until all of them are replaced and then keep replacing with LED over time.
We've noticed that in Meridian campus.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Transportation and land use. I have gotten this report from Martin and some of these I have, so most of these have to do with like the transportation strategies that we have to do with efficiency, making travel more efficient, which is like roundabouts or pedestrian ways. And so we'll be working on a comprehensive transportation plan update this year, along with the comp plan update, which will come later this year and into next year. We have new EV charging stations at 4 city locations. And so I'll go into that a little bit more. I have a little bit more in depth about that. The College Street Northeast Extension, College and 16th Phase 3. So these are just really making travel down College easier and more efficient for folks because it's one of the main roads in Lacey. Rodel Road pedestrian beacons, so making it easier, sure you can see folks on Rodel Road as they're walking across the street, which is important if you want to have a community that's walkable or bikeable as well. So 7th Ave and College roundabouts prevent us from sitting idling in our cars. And so roundabouts are a great way to take out stop signs. Martin Way Park and Ride improvements, which is a project with Intercity Transit, making it a little bit easier to get into that parking lot and out, and also for the buses to get in and out easier so that we can promote more transit, commuting, transit, riding, and things like that. And then the comprehensive plan update will come this year, which will include some climate goals and more climate programs. And then fleet electrification. So Public Work is trying to purchase 2 Ford Lightnings. There's been some issues with Ford getting them. I think a lot of people want them. And so, but we're hopeful by the end of the year, we'll have 2 new Ford trucks in the fleet. Water and wastewater. And so not a ton happening in terms of energy efficiency, but we do have some things that are going in that make it easier to carry water and waste from your home. So water infrastructure is replaced as needed right now during transportation projects, but the water sector, the engineer Terry, she's hopeful that in the future it'll be more proactive in replacing pipes that need it instead of just when we're doing a transportation project. But it does really work well to do it with a transportation project. Golf Club Road is getting bigger mains, water and wastewater mains, so it'll be you can carry more water efficiently without having to have a bunch of pressurized or pressure areas around. Terry, the new tank will be going up online this year. We also have another tank at Martin Way. Not Martin Way, Marvin. It's the Sister Stan pipe, and that's actually a hazard mitigation pipe. So it provides almost all of the water for the northeast section. So if anything were to ever happen to that, we don't have a way, or if we ever need to take it offline and clean it, or if something were to happen, we don't have another tank that we could hold water with. So now we will have another water tank to hold water and make sure that service is continued. And then as of now, they're updating the SCADA operating system from radio signal we're going to Verizon Cellular, mostly because there's like one person I think that can work on radio signal. It's an older system and it's not as efficient. And as that person retires, there's not going to be a person that can, get our SCADA system functioning when it needs to be. Almost all of our systems are controlled by the SCADA system. If you've never seen the SCADA system, by the way, our shop folks really love showing it off. It's a really cool system. You can control turning water off, turning it all from the central location. It's really interesting. And then we're going to maintain the mandatory watering schedule. And also in the future, we might have more restrictions as things get going, but really we're focusing on those top water users. And I know our new water resource specialist is working with the top 10 water users in the city of Lacey to curb their water use through irrigation efforts. Agriculture, forests, and prairies, which is another section of Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. So Woodland Creek Community Park Riparian Restoration Project will hopefully be started this year. It's a smaller project in construction, but what it really is, it's going to be taking out blackberry, which is an invasive species. Woodland Creek is our only salmon bearing stream within the city of Lacey. And so it's really important that we maintain that riparian buffer zone for the salmon and for fish and for water quality. And so it's a restoration project that will take invasive out and put native habitat back in. And then Lacey has a comprehensive forest and tree canopy program, which includes a goal of no net loss to our 2020 canopy of 28%. And we'll be doing a tree canopy analysis next year to see if we're meeting those goals. And then the Greg Cuyo Park and Greenways phase 1A will begin in 2024, which I'm super stoked about as well. There's going to be tons of really great education and outreach opportunities to do salmon stewards there. I talked to Jen about this in my old position a lot, just like really excited. I think I probably jumped the ribbon a little bit wanting to do stuff out there, but it's going to be an amazing new park and I'm really excited for it. It's going to preserve green space, preserve open space and trails for our community as well. And then the park's comprehensive plan is going to be updated this year, which includes climate and climate initiatives as well. And then there's a Woodland Creek oil water separator going in at the stormwater tank there. And so it's just a new one so that as stormwater comes in, the oil will be separated and so it's not going into Woodland Creek, which is really important. And then some cross-cutting measures. A new climate sustainability coordinator position was created. I did not put this up here just to toot my own horn, but but it is in the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan that all jurisdictions will hire staff and come up to staffing levels. And so we have done that, which is really excellent. And then the Inflation Reduction Act will include rebate money for residential energy audits from the federal government to homeowners. We haven't gotten any of that. We haven't gotten any of the guidance yet from them. And so we're just really waiting to figure out so we can get it to our community members as well and they can access that money. And then we'll be conducting emissions inventory next year in accordance with Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. And Thurston County will be the lead contractor with ICLEI, the folks who will be doing our inventory for us next year. And then I feel like that's my last slide. Nope, I have more. So the PSE Lacey matching rebate, like I said, is going to be, so we have up to 200,000 for the pilot year. I don't expect us to use that much, but we're hoping that we get good enough and we do enough education outreach that this pilot program will just roll over year to year and we'll be able to offer this matching rebate for as long as we can, as long as we fund climate sustainability programs. And it's a co-benefit as well. So not only will homes be able to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, they're going to be able to reduce their energy bill as well, which will help them stay in their home if they're struggling or stay in their homes and pay their bills. EV charging stations. So like I said, we have, so we're going to have 5 level 2 chargers and 2 level 3 chargers, and they'll be will be installed for a total of 12 new charging positions across 4 locations. So Lacey City Hall, Lacey Community Center, the library, and then the school district office for North Thurston Public Schools. And so, and then the RAC as well will be adding EV chargers with their parking lot expansion. And then my last one, because I just am so excited, is Greg Cuyo Park and Greenways. Yeah, open space preservations. There's going to be water rights mitigation. I feel like correct me if I'm wrong, the riparian zone is going to be protected up to 200 feet? Yeah, 200 feet, which is really exciting. And so we'll have a mostly intact Woodland Creek. I think up to 90% of Woodland Creek, which is salmon bearing, will have intact or protected riparian buffer zone. Natural stormwater filtration, which is really important for growing city, water quality protection for Woodland Creek watershed, wildlife habitat, and potential fisheries enhancement. So I'm, again, really stoked about that project. And then I think that's the end of my slide, but I would like to end with the regional, so the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative on June 24th on Saturday, we got together the CAW, the EC, and the staff team, and we debated and talked and came up with a regional initiative for this year. And so the staff team is going to be working on getting a model ordinance for a home energy score program at our jurisdictions, hopefully coupled with money that we'll be getting from the federal government for block grants for climate through the Inflation Reduction Act to do some more programming and provide more funding to do those energy efficiency updates. So that'll be our first initial initiative for the region is a home energy score program.
Did you literally say you have 2 months on the job?
I did, yes.
Thank goodness. Wow, you came up to speed fast, I'll tell you.
I'm very passionate about climate change.
Yeah, engagement is wonderful. So
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I was impressed. Wow, you knew a lot of stuff.
That's what I was thinking. There's
Off the
one-
top of her head.
Well, there's one thing to have slides with information. You brought them to life.
Oh,
Excellent. No, that's
Yeah,
great.
got the right person in the job.
Impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I had a question.
Yep.
And I was reading through, I recently took like a big hit because I was on heating oil. And so it's basically like running a diesel engine to keep your house warm all throughout, the winter months. And I was looking at this, like if you're on electricity, you get a massive rebate for going efficient. There's all these rebates for natural gas and for electricity, but there's none for what I would assume would be the most polluting of all of those options. And so it was a real big hit for me economically to know that there's like $4,000 to support people going from electric. But I'm thinking about other peoples who have homes from the 50s that are still running on heating oil, and there's no incentives to convert those. Is there anything in the works for PSE or with the city to actually provide something so that people in the future might kind of take that leap to?
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. My sister-in-law runs her heat on oil as well, and it's very expensive in the winter and very inefficient. I'm not sure about PSE, but that's a good point to bring up, and I'll make sure that's provided with the staff team as we think about our own sort of energy efficiency program coupled with the home energy score that we're including, not just natural gas and electric conversions, but oil as well. Yeah.
And then I also noticed, it seems like.
Lindsay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Olympia's pilot program on the heat pumps
Oh,
that
yeah.
we might expand?
Yeah. Olympia is, they've had really great early success. They're doing a group purchase of heat pumps. And they've had, actually, I was just talking to Pamela about this, the City of Olympia Director of Climate. I'm not sure what official title is, but she's actually had a lot of Lacey residents show up to her informational sessions. And so I'm not sure where they are, but we're hoping to take their model once they've made their first purchase and provided those to folks, and then adopt it here at the City of Lacey as well. So it'll just be like another program that we can do. And that's one of the great things about the collaboration is we don't really have to reinvent programs. We get to share in our successes across the region. And so if something's working well at Olympia, then we don't have to redo what they're already doing. We can, and the same for Olympia.
I was just, I was curious about, it said that the solid waste is increasing larger than our population is. And I was just wondering if you are aware of any of the factors that were going into the increase of waste production.
Yeah, so that's talking about solid waste, so like trash and plastic and things like that. So Thurston County does have a composting program, which isn't as robust as it should be. And it's actually in the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan that we take their composting program and kind of amplify it and make it more, across the jurisdictions into Lacey and Olympia. The only thing I know personally is that solid waste continues to be one of those areas that we have a really hard time moving people just individually away from single-use plastic. There are things that we can do, like banning single-use plastic within the city and things like that. But every day I feel like I see new plastic products on the shelves, and that's like the hardest part about that.
I do know, where I work, we used to be able to recycle a lot. A lot. And we composted a fair amount. And it all went away.
I think part of that, it has to do with the lack of a market for some of those recycled materials. A lot of that market was, it was sold. So for recycling, it's collected and then it's sold to another party to do something with that. I think it's most markets it's cheaper to provide plastic, whatever, from virgin materials than it is to recycle. And so, things, especially I think like glass, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That is like really hard to recycle because of just the sheer costs associated with doing anything with it.
And I think they stopped taking styrofoam. At Hogan
Yeah,
Bay.
they.
That-
There's a place
Change
up in
routes a lot of the
Seattle, you gotta
time.
drive all the way to Seattle.
That's not gonna happen.
electric vehicles.
Those were always full, those foam,
Well-
those styrofoam were always full
Yep.
at the recycle center.
A lot of it's education,
no
like
styrofoam.
I have to make a decision to buy this product versus this product because of the amount of packaging
Right,
they put. And
right.
so, you know, I do that every day at the store or at Costco. It's like, you know, I'm gonna buy differently to avoid the packaging. And so I think it's education to make just people think about that. Don't just think about the price or how convenient it is or whatever.
Absolutely.
My poor husband can't use a baggie if his life depended on it. No, reusable plastic. You can't use this.
Don't
in
use
front.
it.
And I think that's one of the things we can do at the city too, now that we have this new website. One of the things that we're working on is just getting more information out to our community as well. We don't necessarily have to have all of the information on our website, but we can certainly
Mhm.
show people where that information is to go, link to recycling and composting and and Tumwater actually, I'm excited, is doing a in-house composting. They now have compost in their city hall and folks are really into it and really excited. And so as that comes on board more, you know, again, helping jurisdictions adopt each other's things that are working well. Because the one thing we do know, and I say all the time about climate, is that just because, you know, Lacey ends at a certain street doesn't mean that the effects of climate change into that street. It really is a regional issue and a global issue as well.
Well, we have slid backwards and it's not okay. We have to come up with better answers. And part of it is educating people to understand, just like you, I do the same thing. If I buy a product and find out that the product's this big, and it came in a box this big,
Sure.
that's the last time I'd ever buy that product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just waste.
So will the new reservoir increase water pressure?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure, but I could definitely find it out for you. I mean,
Yeah, the
it
one,
probably
the
will.
Terry Cargill
Yeah.
reservoir, I think that was the primary reason why
Okay.
it's an elevated tower like
Yeah.
that, is to increase the pressure.
Because we have high efficiency appliances and they don't work well. And in fact, when we bought our new house, we had Sears come out and they said, you don't have enough water pressure.
Yeah.
So we have to wash darks twice, otherwise they don't rinse.
Yeah.
So.
The other ones we don't do because we can't see it, but on our dark clothes, you can see the residue. So,
Absolutely.
and that's not very efficient in a high efficiency washing machine,
Too.
but the dryer is amazing.
Curious who the top 10 water users in Lacey are.
Oh, you have that information. You can contact Charlene McKendry. She's our water resource specialist. We track all of that. I will give you a hint, who the #1 water user is. It's us. It is the city of Lacey, yeah.
North Thurston Public Schools is probably right in.
North Thurston
Yeah.
Public School is right up there though.
So a lot of it,
Absolutely.
I think primarily is irrigation, so any,
Yeah.
you know, plant or strip watering,
Mhm.
you know, watering athletic fields and those kinds of things.
Yeah, our parks department though, maintenance has done an amazing job with trying out new products, especially at the rack, that reduce our need to water like in half. So like putting like a wetting agent on the field so that the soil keeps moisture longer and then we don't need to water as much. Yep,
That's a cool.
absolutely. Yes, Scott down at the shop, who's now the operations director, he was really excited about it and we were having a conversation
What
about it.
does it say it again?
It's a wetting agent.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
I heard on the radio this morning that Europe is implementing speed limits on cars. They're gonna block. You can't go over the speed limit and it will drastically reduce.
Oh, make the
Emissions.
car. So
Like
They-
a governor.
They were saying if the United
The
States
clock
was
shuts
really serious, they would do it, because now all cars have that capability, but the US will never do it, so.
Going to the grass issue, we're actually experimenting with something in Meridian campus in our common areas with eco grass. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
In my first position with the city of Lacey, I was managing the mandatory watering schedule. And then in the stormwater utility, just trying to educate folks about, you know, actually, why do we have grass in America? And it goes back to the 1950s and, you know, kind of status quo thing that we actually don't need it. It's bad for pollinators as well. And so talking to folks about eco lawns, talking to them about xeriscaping, and updating their front, at least their front area to, drought resistant plants and native plants and
We
pollinator
have a
habitat and
homeowner
rain
that-
gardens.
She volunteered to have her private property with the ecograss.
Excellent.
And it is a pollinator paradise. It really just shows up like curly clover.
Absolutely.
And it's phenomenal. So she volunteered because she doesn't touch any other properties the way the plat is. And we're doing it in some of the common areas and we're realizing much less irrigation requirements.
Yep.
So ecograss, it still looks great. It still looks like what you want, but
Sure.
doesn't take the water.
That's great.
There's answers
There's a
out there
lot of stuff
already,
out
and
there,
we're
yeah.
certainly not using them.
I do have a question going to your slide about efficiencies that we realized with the roundabouts. And I think that there's a lack of understanding by a lot of our Lacey neighbors and maybe other people that use our circles, that's why they're there, right? To reduce idling. But there's also a lack of understanding how to use them properly that I've seen and I've heard about.
Oh, yeah.
If there is more than one lane to the roundabout,
Oh, you're
it's
in hell.
really problematic.
Yeah.
So I actually put in a 311 to ask to repaint some of those arrows, on the website. But I think the arrows at least will be a visual cue if they don't already have a driving skill that tells them when you're supposed to be on the inside, when you're supposed to be on the outside. But I think that's a big educational opportunity for educating on roundabouts.
That's one thing we're excited and I think we've talked about a lot is just a lot more education with the public about the work that we're doing around climate and sustainability. Because we really have, and not just the last year, I mean, the last 15, 20 years, we've been doing a ton with planning and trying to get, sustainable Thurston and things like that going, so.
And Lon had this program for the Purple Pipe, I called it the Purple Pipe Program. But it seems like it just kind of died off, it just stopped.
Peter Brooks would love to talk to you about Purple Pipe, the water resources manager. He's right, it'll be the future eventually, it's just about putting the infrastructure in place to do it. And we actually do put reclaimed water into Woodland Creek Community Park, so we have a big reclaimed water facility there under the grass, which is part of our water rights, and in order to get our water rights back in 2016, I think we had to do some of that work, but.
Wasn't that what that big area off of Marvin Road is supposed to be for?
The lot infiltration ponds.
That's the, yeah.
But what are they doing with that water?
That water goes into the ground.
Oh, that's just a drain back into the ground.
It recharges the aquifer.
Yeah.
One of the things that we, that has been on the kind of the long-term horizon, but we haven't completed yet, is an actual utility plan related to the reclaimed water. So just like we have a utility plan for water, for sewer, we would have one for Purple Pipe so that we could have, future areas that could be served and actually have a water utility that would be associated with.
Yeah, I think of the two Hawks Prairie golf courses right there by Jubilee. It's like, it's ideal for that kind of situation, and probably doesn't happen. And they were supposed to add more tanks down by downtown Olympia, but I don't know if they ever did. I don't remember them putting the tanks in.
As far as our reclaimed water, it comes from, I think, mostly the Martin Way plant. So, anything in downtown Olympia wouldn't really affect us here in Lacey.
Yeah. I'm just figuring it's lots everywhere, right? Lacey, Olympia. So they must have programs.
One thing that I know you guys send out information in water bills that are about conservation. If you don't get a water bill, which I don't, I get none of that information. There are probably hundreds of people who don't get that information in Lacey because there's no way to distribute it. We need to figure out how to do that.
We do a lot of education and outreach, social media, is I think our primary way right now of doing that. We do, we've got videos, but most of that stuff is pushed out now through social media.
Through social media.
I see a lot on Facebook.
Yeah.
Instagram has stepped up, man. I get a City of Lacey post a couple times a day sometimes. It's just like,
That's good.
Interrupt just from public affairs.
Yeah.
We're actually looking at that problem exactly, because if you live in an apartment complex or a mobile home park, you might not be getting that Lacy Life publication. And so we're looking at reformatting that, collecting a lot of data and input from the community on maybe that needs to be a quarterly publication that you pick up at the grocery store or at popular locations.
Because there are 1,200 people where I live that don't get that information.
Right, and so we're rethinking the way that we do that.
Good.
Okay, any questions? Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I just have a point of clarification for Lindsay. The first thing you said was it feels like you've been with CDD for a long time. I just want to make sure that's in a good way.
It is in a good way.
Thank you.
Bring you back.
A lot of work has been done in 2 months and it's.
Congratulations on your new
Thank you.
position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll move on to old business, having none I'm aware of. Communication announcements. We'll plan a meeting next month.
Yep, at this point, we'll have a meeting August 1st will be the next meeting.
It comes up fast, you guys. August 1st.
I will let you know if something changes.
All right.
What about the emails that came about the meeting with Thurston County? So are those?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the
Joint session.
Yes.
We're still waiting, so on that front, we have now basically a draft of the joint plan that's moving forward through public outreach, and we're actually gonna host a booth at the Thurston County Fair. So those things are moving forward. We're just not to the point yet of having those joint planning commission meetings. I was at the request of Thurston County to do more outreach prior to going to the planning commission. So stay tuned on that. I think originally we thought, well, we'll be by this point certainly meeting, but it seems like it's still gonna be a ways off on that front.
Okay, so she was putting out some dates in August
Yeah.
and September, so those
Yeah.
are still tentative then?
Who was that? I'm not sure.
Natasha Knight.
Caution.
She did work session 1, August 22nd, 23rd, or 24th, work session 2, 29th, 30th, 31st, public hearing 26th, 27th, 28th.
Grant, have you gotten anything?
Oh.
I think those may have just gone directly to the planning commission. I wasn't aware of.
Well, they came to our city of Lacy email.
It's interesting that we weren't.
Yeah.
You want me just to forward it to you or something?
Yeah, if you could forward it, somebody can forward it to me.
I got a couple of them.
I did too.
Yeah.
I sent it there, I pulled this thing open about 4
Or
days.
Andrews at CI Lacy.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we have a meeting.
Yeah.
I usually do, well, good.
To charge it up.
Yeah, I usually do.
Yeah, so I-
Commissions, I should look and see if it's actually.
Yeah,
happening.
yeah. Should I read something or what? Yeah, right.
Our next meeting again is August 1st.
Okay.
And if there's no other business, we are adjourned. And
So what about this
Stay by.
little doobie?
yeah, stay by if you wanna figure out how to get on.
At this point, we'll just adjourn the regular meeting and take care of logins to the new Civic Clerk program. We'll let everybody go.
Thank you all.
To Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
Bye, Grant.
Provide you with an email address.